Hello, my friend. This is Clyde. Someone needs you. I'm talking to my Christian brothers and sisters, and today I say to you, you need someone, and someone needs you. In some circles, they call that person a spiritual parent or mentor. You need someone to watch over, someone to offer spiritual guidance. I heard a testimony earlier today of a woman who was young and who said her best friend in the church was a senior citizen, a woman who would pray for her, pray with her, pray over her. This older woman took on the assignment for watching over a younger woman who today is actively involved in ministry. I want to introduce you to the nature of that relationship between Paul, the renowned apostle, and Timothy, his mentee. Paul affectionately called him my true son in the faith, 1 Timothy 1 and verse 2. And on another occasion, he called him Timothy, my dear son. I grew up in the church, and my Paul was our pastor. My pastor knew me more than my parents, who were totally respectful of him and trusted this dear man and his wife to pour into my life. I humbly say today, many years later, that if there is 1 ounce of Christian virtue in me, Aston Edwards is responsible for planting and watering those seeds. I called him Daddy, and I owe him a debt of gratitude. Paul was not related to Timothy by blood, but Paul groomed this young man in things spiritual. He invested in him to such a great extent that there are 2 epistles in the New Testament that give us a front row seat in watching this father-son relationship play out right before our very eyes. Paul knew a bit about faith and knew how important faith is in the life of the believer. Listen as Paul lovingly addresses the matter of living a faith life. Timothy, my son, I am giving you this command in keeping with the prophecies once made about you, so that by recalling them you may fight the battle well, holding on to faith and a good conscience, which some have rejected and so have suffered shipwreck with regards to the faith. 1 Timothy 1, 18 and 19. In another place, Paul spoke passionately about Timothy's faith and helped to fan the flames of the sincere faith that Timothy had inherited from his mother and grandmother. And according to Paul, I am persuaded now lives in you also. In that context of encouragement, Paul goes on to say to his young prodigy, for this reason, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. 2 Timothy 1, verses 6 and 7. Paul did not just hang out with Timothy. Paul was determined to see Timothy maximize his potential as a Christian and become a giant in the faith and within the Christian community of which they each were a part. Timothy had in Paul that person who was ambitious for him, who sincerely wanted this young Christian man to be a strong and exemplary Christian. You need to be that someone who will dream about the life of your young prodigy, who will serve as a mighty man or woman of God. You need someone in your life who is not asking for anything materially from you, but who sees you as a person who can influence their future in a godly and meaningful way. Paul was not harsh, at least not in the letters that we have read, but he was clear in what he said to the young man. On one occasion, Timothy was on an assignment serving as a pastor at a local church. In a context of temptations and being disrespected by older Christians, Paul gave Timothy sound advice. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example to the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. 1 Timothy 4 and verse 12. Paul was very bold in teaching the young man how to navigate the challenges many young men face, the temptation to engage in sexual activities. We never read of Timothy being married, at least not when he was getting these letters from his mentor. So Paul spoke to the common problem that assails the lives of many young Christians. Flee the evil desires of youth and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord and out of a pure heart. 2 Timothy 2, verse 22. I know many Christian young persons who would welcome straight up talk like this from older members of the church community, rather than the constant barrage of criticism that is hurled at them over and over again. Not so with Paul. He was determined to make sure that Timothy lived a life that was pleasing to God. I love this last reference we will consider as we draw to a close. Paul knew the tough life of being a Christian, let alone a Christian leader. Paul did not sugarcoat his advice to Timothy, and you can appreciate the boldness of the older man with the young man who had an impressionable mind. Paul was speaking wisdom to this young man. Be strong as a soldier. Be strong as an athlete. Be strong as a farmer. Paul, the one who watched over the life of this young man, was committed to bringing out integrity, spiritual maturity, and victory in a young man in the first century church. The young men and women in your 21st century church, they need a modern day Paul. That older person who is willing to pour love and encouragement into their lives as they prepare to become tomorrow's leaders in the Christian community. You then, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus, and the things you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others. Join with me in suffering like a good soldier of Jesus Christ. No one serving as a soldier gets entangled in civilian affairs, but rather tries to please his commanding officer. Similarly, anyone who competes as an athlete does not receive the victor's crown except by competing according to the rules. The hard-working farmer should be the first to receive a share of the crops. Reflect on what I am saying, for the Lord will give you insight into all this. 2 Timothy 2, verses 1 to 7. My friend, be a Paul. Find a young Christian in your church. They need your guidance and your prayerful support to be Christians, strong Christians in a challenging world. You can make the difference in somebody's life in this season. Somebody is waiting for you.